Joining us is the Chief Executive Officer of ACE Scholarships, Mr. Norton Rainey. The scholarships are dedicated to providing help to children from lower income families, enabling access to private K-12 education, while also championing school choice expansion. Thank you for being here on the show today, Norton.
David, you are most welcome. It is a pleasure to be on your show. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk about this issue of education reform in our country and how we're making a difference through school choice, I'm always privileged. Thank you very much.
That's great. So we know you've got some great insights, and we're excited that you're going to share them with our listeners today.
Okay.
Let me start with the first question. Share a little bit about the history of the ACE Scholarship. How did it start and how it expanded?
Well, thank you, David. So we had this incredible man, a guy named Alex Cranberg, who is our primary founder of ACE Scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
He launched the program in the year 2000, and he went to 5 of his buddies who were all very successful business leaders in Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hey, I had this epiphany. And he said, one day I was driving my girls to a beautiful school, a great private school, and I just recognized that I'm lucky. I have money, that my kids can go to a school that's expensive, and I know that my daughters are being educated. But at the same time, he was hearing quite a few reports in Denver that lower income children in the inner city were not being educated and that their access to a good school was limited at best. And so he decided to launch ACE Scholarships as a privately funded scholarship program to give immediate access to kids who are being left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first year, they launched with 500 students. That program, over 25 years, has grown to more than 80,000 kids being provided with scholarships. And this year alone, we're going to grow from 14,000 to 24,000 students on scholarships. So It is a game changer for these families who are graduating. They're succeeding in life and going to college. And we just have a chance to play a role in that. And what I love more than anything else, David, is not just the data showing how well our kids are doing, but the stories I get from our parents and our schools and our children about how this is radically changing their lives, where they're able to do things they couldn't before because of education. And so that's the wonderful work that I have a chance to be a part of. I'm so privileged and proud, and we have really big plans for the future when it comes to education in America.
Wow. Well, listen, are the ACE Scholarships just for people who live in Colorado?
No, sir. We are in 12 states. We launched in Colorado, but we've now spread our wings to 12 states.
Wow. Okay.
And our operations include privately funded scholarships. We manage tax credit programs.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we were awarded the contract to lead the Education Savings Account, or ESA program, in the state of Utah.
Great.
The first year we'll have 10,000 students being served through the Utah program. So we're very excited to be in the ESA space as well.
I think that's a good space to be in.
No question.
There's a lot of, I think that the idea of public education is a great idea, but we need more players in the game. We need more cooks in the kitchen.
We do.
And I think your benefactor was right. When you have resources, you got options.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have resources, it's a whole different ballgame.
It's really true. So, David, he used to say, excuse me for interjecting there, but he would say often that if you're wealthy, you send your kid to the private school that you want. If you're middle income, you move to a neighborhood where a good public school exists.
Yes.
And if you're poor, you're going to the school in your zip code, which all too often is not a good education for your child. And then he would go on to share these great examples about the United States and how, as a believer in free markets and capitalism, that we have choices in every aspect of our lives, from using FedEx or UPS to USPS, and the home you buy, the clothing you purchase. But in education, sadly, we still live in a system right now where you're limited by your zip code. And if you have no money, that's the only option you have. So we're big believers and very agnostic on the kind of education that a child receives, as long as they have access to a quality education, whether it's a public school, a private school charter, anything that works for them. We're pro-family, we're pro-education.
Yeah. Well, listen, as long as the parent gets to choose, they get to say.
That's right.
I'm happy with it. Your decision. I'm happy with your decision. How did you find how did you find yourself in this organization? I always ask this question about people in school choice because I know you didn't grow up saying I wanted to do this. So what's your why behind being involved in school choice efforts?
Well, I found myself at ACE by accident. This was not something that I sought to do in my life. I was a
Mm-hmm.
business major at the
Mm-hmm.
University of Colorado. I was a golfer who wanted to play pro golf. I actually played golf at the same time as Tiger Woods. And so I got a
Okay.
chance to see firsthand what it meant to be a really good golfer. And I also knew I couldn't compete with that guy and many other golfers. So what happened is I took a job at the Colorado Foundation for what I thought would be a foray into nonprofit world
Mm-hmm.
for a short period of time. And then shortly after, I met Alex Cranberg. And Alex
Okay.
just was this very inspirational person who said, do you want to be a part of something special as we are changing the world? We're changing the country through education. And honestly, I still didn't know if this is something I wanted to do long term, but I was absolutely captivated by his words and what he was doing. And he was backing it up with his money, not just his mouth. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw more people in Denver doing the same thing. And I got to meet guys like Howard Fuller that you and I spoke about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw these amazing people, and that was really my foray into education. And I've now been doing this for 22 years.
Okay.
And I'll really tell you my why behind this is that my why at this time is that we have a chance to radically impact education in our country because we know school choice works. And also, too many kids are being left behind. Too many kids are not able to access the American dream. And so my why is that every kid in this country has access to a quality education. And ACE is one of many remarkable school choice programs in the country that is out there very proudly on the front lines saying that we're going to do this until every kid has a quality education. So that's my why. And I'd say that's
Okay.
also the why of ACE as well.
Great. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the bipartisan nature of the school choice movement. What are you seeing around the country with the movement, and what needs to be done to help maintain the working across the aisles that needs to happen to make educational opportunity possible?
Well, I'm seeing more bipartisan support than I've ever seen before. It's a very exciting time. And I'll give you a couple examples. In the state of Louisiana, they have a ESA bill that's being considered as we speak, and they have tremendous progress. They have 6 Democratic leaders who are in favor of this bill.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those leaders, a gentleman named Jason Hughes, gave the most impassioned speech a couple weeks ago. And I would encourage all your listeners, pull that up on YouTube, look up
Say the
Representative
name again.
Jason Hughes from
Okay.
Louisiana.
All right.
And this remarkable man and orator, someone that you should have on your show, David.
Okay.
He said, I can't stand behind the fact that our kids are being left behind, that they can't read, that they can't write.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it so eloquently, but that's just one example of many Democrats in the country. Or Misha Maynor in the state of Georgia.
I know her. She's been on the show.
Party.
Yep.
Good guest to have.
Yep.
So we're seeing people reaching across the aisles and saying, you know what, we can agree on one thing, and that is that we love our kids and we care for our kids. And so we're going to work together in a bipartisan way to ensure that our children are educated because we all care about our country. So across the country, there's a reason why ESA bills are passing, because we're seeing more Democratic leaders and Republicans actually working together for a common bond, and that's to make our country better.
That's great. We have what's it 2023, 2024 alone. ACE had scholarships that helped over 14,000 students, and that's an incredible number. Would you share some of your success stories that illustrate the impact that you've had with your tenure over in the organization?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And what I'm also really proud of is that it's not just 14,000 this year. That number will grow to 24,000 kids
Wow.
who will now have an ACE scholarship this year. The stories go on and on. Here's one thing that we know. We can guarantee success when a person supports organization, that our kids will graduate and that they're well prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say guarantee, what I mean by that is that at least 90% of our kids will graduate from high school. That's a very high percentage compared to the national average, where
Sure.
low-income kids are not doing well. So we're very proud of that, which we love. And at the same time, we're not resting on our laurels because too many kids are still being left behind at this time. But one success story I love is a young man named Josiah in
Mm-hmm.
Little Rock, Arkansas. And when Josiah was 10 years old, his father passed away.
Mm-hmm.
His father was actually an educator, and he said to his wife, he said, make sure that our boys are educated. And his wife, she made a commitment to her husband that our boys will be educated.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew the best education in Little Rock was a private Christian school, but she couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so she inquired, and the school put her in touch with ACE scholarships. And Josiah went from being a kid who was really floundering in life and struggling with his father's death to now being in a positive, affirming environment that also helped him recognize he was a great student
Mm-hmm.
and to help him flourish. And now we're really proud to say that he's at Oral Roberts University. He's
Great.
thriving, he's doing well, he's setting big goals and dreams for his life someday. And Josiah's just one of many stories. They go on and on. A girl named Jessica last year in Houston spoke at our luncheon, and she grew up in a poor family, and she was able to go to college, and now she's working at a investment banking firm. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm making 4 times more money in my first year at a college than my parents make on an annual basis. And she
Yes.
said, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying
No.
that because I'm educated. So
Yes.
that's the power of an education.
A great education propels people. It's like putting them in a rocket ship. So
It's their
that's great.
fuel.
So have you seen an increase in demand for ACE scholarships in the states where ACE participates?
We have our demand is off the charts. More parents than ever want an ACE scholarship. They want their kids to be in a good school. And this year alone in Utah, the applications just closed a few days ago, and we have more than 27,000 students who want access to the ESA
Mm-hmm.
program, and we only have
Wow.
10,000 spots.
Wow.
Our demand has gone up threefold the last couple of years from families right now that are trapped in underperforming schools.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even marketing our efforts to our families because we have limited resources and we can't help out every family. So just imagine, David, if we were marketing our efforts to families outside of a state like Utah, how much more that would be. So
Sure.
this demand has never changed over the years, but more than ever, we're seeing that grow. We also know there's been a huge loss from COVID. During COVID, it was a devastating time,
Yes.
devastating for our children and for parents. And so we're still recovering from that pandemic academically, where our kids are so much further behind than ever.
What people learned in COVID, though, was that private schools went back faster.
Mm-hmm.
They got kids back in class faster, and that made a big difference. And their children weren't as impacted as much by COVID.
They adjusted very well. And I know that as a parent of kids in private school during COVID, our kids were able to be in class very quickly, but also they adapted with online education,
Mm-hmm.
and still they maintain high standards. And there's been some great studies around the country showing that our Catholic schools did a really good job where their kids saw no loss in learning
Right.
in COVID
Yep.
compared to most kids where they were seeing a decline of a year or two during that same
Yes.
time. So, yeah, we know that our schools, they really care about their kids, but they're also, David, it's important for people to know these are not these rich institutions. I mean, people always have this mindset that if it's a private school, it's a elite institution that charges
Sure.
an ungodly amount of money. As you and I both know, the majority of private schools are down to earth and they're actually very affordable.
Right.
They're from 10 to 15,000 per year, but they're a business. And if they're not educating their constituents, they go out of business. So they have to provide a good product. And so they're accountable to their customer, the parents, and the parents know that and the schools know it. So it's a really wonderful relationship. So during COVID, they did an excellent job.
Well, I mean, you talked about the free market earlier, and the free market helps us in almost every way we address life. I mean, the food we eat, the cars we drive, our health care, where
Right.
we live. The free market helps us get better products, better outcomes for the money we spend. And to take that concept into education just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Well, it's a no-brainer. And once again, it's the biggest area in our country where we seem to have no choice at all. And it's obviously the most important sector in our country. It is so much more important than anything else because if our kids aren't being educated, they can't go to college. our incarceration rates are skyrocketing. We know that poverty increases,
Mm-hmm.
and businesses don't have a base of students they can hire to be competent. And we hear stats all the time where businesses are really suffering because they can't find a competent workforce or kid who's competent to work in their sector. So education, I don't want to say it's the end all, but it certainly is the most important thing in our country. And when you're educated, your esteem goes up. And now your values are strong as well too. So everything starts with education. That really impacts our country and who we want to be.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead, what are the ACE scholarships' future goals? So, what do you look? How do you look to further your mission in providing educational opportunities for underserved communities?
Well, our vision is that every child in America has access to a quality education. And we recognize a lot of kids are still not experiencing the American dream. So moving ahead, we're going to grow from more than 12 states to many more. We have a policy team that's aggressively working on passing legislative initiatives so that more families have access through school choice programs, whether it's a ESA or a tax credit. And we're going to continue to keep the heat turned up because right now we recognize what we're doing is valuable for our country. And I would say there's other great programs too that are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
What we offer as a program is really extraordinary because we know it makes a difference. And we have a great team, David. Our team is very committed to this effort. Our team is committed to seeing kids flourish and our program grow, not just for the sake of growing, but because our country needs ACE more than ever. So we're excited and really emboldened at this time.
Well, you've done an incredible job. I mean,
Thank
to start out with just a few 500 scholarships and go to 80,000 that you've done now and 24,000. I mean, those are incredible numbers. And those numbers, behind every one of those numbers is a story, and a story of success. And listen, I don't mean that 100% of all the kids have to be successful, but what has been successful is they found a path to success. And that means they have a future. Whereas students who have no path for success are stuck in their situation. So kudos to you for all the hard work that you do and all the success you've had. Thanks for joining us today.
David, if I could say one more thing also too. Last year, Deion Sanders was a guest speaker at our luncheon in Colorado. And in closing, number one, Deion was incredible, as we all know.
Oh, yeah.
Great information. But he asked a question to those in the audience. He said, I know that a lot of you care, but are you willing to do something? And he said, are you in the game? And he gave an analogy that when he played football, he'd look across the field and only one or two people he was competing against were really in the game that he had to be concerned about. And he said, the same is true in this movement. He said, some people are involved, but not everyone is. And he said, are you in the game? Because our country and our families need us more than ever. And so that would be my encouragement to your listeners is, are you in the game? And if you're not, get in the game. Support this effort. Rally, because we need you more than ever. And here's the cool thing. We've got more momentum than ever before. So you're joining a winning team that is poised to win many more Super Bowls, but we need you, though, to make that possible. So thank you so much for your support and advocacy, David.
Norton, thank you for all the work you're doing, and thank you for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you.